an attempt to shape up his daughter, he bought her a dollhouse. Rey Tosim, father of the month, he picked up the phone from the receiver to talk to the host from the ad in the post. This comes as a warning. Then the line was cut without warning. Outside it was snowing. In pants that are soaking, Rebecca trudges through it into the path home. Her father wasn't still on the phone. Come on now, take off all your clothes. As a puddle began to form on the floor in front of the door. It was to no fault of his own, but when Rebecca was 9 years old is when the incident first occurred. Now she is 12 and her mother is with us no more. Ray flashes back to the same age and thinks, oh my, how the tables have turned. The tile was cold as he thinks about his only child grown and on their own. Every day at school is a concern. Her blonde hair bounces as she runs to the next room over. It was in that moment he couldn't help but to remember how her eyes had gleamed over with glee. Hunched over, holding scissors. The life insurance investigation wasn't a cakewalk, but once we were paid up, it was time for a talk. The folds in the corner of her mouth would vanish whenever a subject arose that was morbid. If you have an open wound, you better close it, or cover it with a bandage at the very least. She caught a glimpse of the miniature figures and the furnishings with them that would go in the equally as small building her dad bought. Small eyes darted back and forth, keeping focus on the girl, but no one seemed to notice. She looked at her dad and said, "What am I supposed to do with this?" And that was it, a gift to forget. And when morning dawned upon us, where the dollhouse laid last evening was where it still sits. She waited with bated breath. The weather was freezing, 20 degrees F at best. Ray seen her and crossed the street immediately. Steam seeped from his head like a vent. Out of breath, Ray said panting, "Hey, how about some coffee?" He's been jogging since 5:45 and worked at the warehouse around the corner at 7, which was in 15 minutes. But this was more important. Hesitant, she reached into her pocket and pulled out her cell phone / wallet contraption and answered. "Only if you're buying. It's easy to get by when you're handsome." Rey Tosim took her hand.
The Smiling Diner's an ironic name, cause nobody inside it's got a lot to say that's not complaints, although the coffee's great. She followed Ray, a wobbly stained table in the corner where they conversate. She told him that her name was Laura. He told her she was pretty, but she played it off and straight ignored the compliment. The waitress came to take the order. She said sausage, eggs and bacon, plus a steak with sauce, and put it on a single plate. Last thing I ate's the day before, and Ray adored her. He said, "I'll have a coffee," and the waitress left. Laura gazed intently at his face to check if she could gauge Ray's intentions. It was a failed attempt, he never gave the game away. He didn't break a sweat. He said, "Tell me what you've done today." She said, "I cut myself to numb the pain. Dealing with depression is an ugly game." Rolled up her sleeves, revealing bloody stains. Ray wasn't fazed. He said, "Keep that to your wrist, cause we don't want to risk injuring your lovely face." The waitress brought the coffee and food. Laura wolfed hers all down, barely stopping to chew. Ray was watching her move, feeling butterflies. She asked how long the drive was to his house, and he said under 5 minutes. We could walk it if you wanna try. She said, "Come, let's go, I love the snow, I'm sick of being stuck inside." Ray said, "First I'm off for a piss. I'll get one more refill on my coffee, then dip. Cause I've been out jogging since 5:45, and I'm feeling exhausted as shit." And strangely, for a place like this that gives off such a shitty vibe, with everything inside it looking filthy, grotty, damp and filled with grime, the coffee's actually really nice. As Ray took a piss with bated breath, impatient for amazing sex, Laura slipped a pill into his drink and watched it sink as it was fizzing. The bait was set. Ray paid the check. At 8, they left.
I think I'm gonna be late for work. In a car, with a girl, without a shirt. Where did the time go? The first thing I heard was her chatting it up on the phone. I stir like mixing ingredients in a bowl. Okay, I gotta go. She touches the screen of her phone, rubs Ray's bare leg. He looks down to notice his sweats on the floor. This whore's hand was soft as it cupped his balls. Real good. I'm thinking these windows have to be tinted. The front end was spacious with no recollection. Past breakfast, he had to question what happened to get him here. His speech was groggy. Vision, half impaired. The woman him like a child while the fingers of her other hand ran up and down the full length of his privates. She was taking the time to unfurl each individual curl of his dark pubic hairs. Ensnared she was not. Her breasts flipped and they flopped. When she started to jerk Ray off, her pace was steady, then varied. He thought this would be a great way to spend an evening, but I'm not even close to coming. I wonder what else she has done to me. The beat was rhythmic. Getting closer now to the climax, this woman brushed her hair back behind her ear and leaned over into my lap with mouth wide open like arms and fastly approaching. Ray snapped her neck before her teeth could sink too deep.
Dead him on these nightmare Elm Streets, 45 Magnum in the Jeep Cherokee, swords tucked under the handle, under the hoodie, knives in my hands, and the sleeve. Walking to the spot with some bogeys on me, straight jacket, hacksaw, match wits, with cats on the stoop staring at me and Ray. They holler, hey yo, J Magnum, Rey Tosim. I respond, just Cagney and lace him. They start stalking and slow walking after us. Ready to bust, thinking we trespassing at dead zone. Ask them, this ain't purge night. We can dust off with the friendlies. I'm willing and ready. Then I get a text, homie, Big Pop, don't go to the spot. There's 5-0 waiting. We dip back to the whip, got a burn notice on us. Started up with no lights on. See a dark caddy pull up next to me at the light. Book a few through miss by inches. I'm in the pinch, tires get hit. We abandon ship, dip back. So cold loaded, hit homes, can I crash at your crib? Ray and I hit the streets like we running track meet. Going down dark alleys, being chased by killers with blades on. Masked up machete things with black hoodies on. Dipping like we flying the red eye. I'm asthmatic, so I'm out of breath. Gotta find a spot where I can rest. Drop my blades down the sewer so we can make maneuvers. Dip through man's basement unseen. Saw flashing lights down the block. Not picking up for no caller ID. Had a feeling we was being watched like Swamp Thing. Hearing alarms, saw some dead rising. Going with the wind, see my man trying to save our lives. Started throwing tables, taking out walls and electrical cables. Finally broke some windows. Ray went first and broke his ankle. I went second and clipped my wrist like a suicide attempt. We ran through, kept going till we hit a wall. Couldn't climb, couldn't run, and hide till we just died. Idle hands made for bad plans. We just wanted chronic so we could be bionic. Instead we ended up cut up on the floor.
Except I didn't want the chronic. I wanted to study the strain laced with something godly. Both Jay and I heard stories. Ray kept the cellular close to his body, charged up like a battery in case of emergency. Beat Kathleen from where we lay, still dizzy from the fall. Say something along the lines of, where in the fuck are you? We're bleeding and it's bad, son. You already got the location, so why are you waiting? Magnum's wristwatch ticks. His blood accumulates into a pool just as steady. I disconnect the phone call and mutter, hurry up. My twisted ankle dangled, pain shot up from that area. I crawled or could have tried hopping, but I just wanted to get my boy to stop bleeding. My only injury hindered me greatly, but his wounds were grave deep. If we could only hold out until Kathleen came, we may not have to bury Jay. Today was unrelenting, relentless. The chase continued to progress. Then the sing-song of birds chirping wake me up from a dream, starting to slip into unconsciousness from the pain. Surface long enough to hear the young god talk. Ray, why is it so dark? Close enough to peep the kids watch. 11 o'clock. Didn't know what to tell him. Because it's night out and we're hiding like night owls in this basement. From outside the window, I heard what could have been mistaken for movement. Glass blew open so the wind could be felt when it set the air in motion. Colder than cuts. A silhouette appeared near the brush. A thin black shadow walked to us hunched. One followed behind it that was much more stout. It was Kathleen and George Stark. I shut my eyes and thought. Listening to Rancid, Ruby Soho on the stereo in my room. She was a rude girl who refused my first date offer at the bus station. Miniskirt operator like a prostitute for hire. Bird marks on her legs that could have been from a tractor or her father. He approached with a smile and she replied, I only do anal. He stuttered, but that wasn't what I was going to ask you. Sorry if you're not a paying customer. The back of her head was layered. A girl who looks like she likes to get severely beaten. I might have seen her in a gangbang from Kink. My fascination was immense. As she departed, I stepped in the same direction, then retracted back to my apartment where I could sulk in silence or plot a plan of action. Once home, Ray got on the computer to do some research. The topic was pornographic. Hours had passed before he noticed it was morning. Surfing like the waves were here, it would appear. His hunch was correct. One scene and her name was Francesca Belle. 12 men at once grabbed at her crotch through her skirt, and her shirt was ripped off with an actual decent amount of force that her whole body jerked forward. If it wasn't for the 3 fingers in her cunt, she would have fallen flat on her face, of which one of the actors slapped and then spat on after saying, stand the fuck up, whore. Another slap echoed in the almost empty chamber. They dragged her with what little amount of hair she had to a table, where another guy smacked her even harder, causing her head to ricochet off that same table. Another pinched her mouth together for someone to put their dick inside it, which she didn't resist or struggle. She opened the hole wider to get told close it and suck that dick harder. We all know you can do better, pig slut. It was silent except for the of the actors and the glurping of Francesca, which quickly turned into gagging as she had a dick in each hand, experimenting with the hidden palm cock technique. They all gathered around the table and the camera angle ascended higher to show her limbs spread out like a spider servicing 6 dicks before the view moved under one of the performers, pumping in and out of her like, you go girl. With the focus on a not so tight asshole, they hurled a couple more insults before standing her upright, and the 6 studs in the front rotated around to make room for the 6 others. Bent over the table, her ankles were now tied to its legs, and a line had formed behind a spectacle meant for Caligula. Obviously, they all penetrated her in sequential order. I'm sure you get the picture. Ray saved the scene to his hard drive to watch again later. He skipped breakfast and dinner, slowly withering away like shrivel. He wanted something Asian like London Tipton, so he placed an order to the Chinese pickup, not delivery, then began to walk to the place, paid with a couple of faces, and asked for a fork to go. And then again, there was that girl. Confused when he shouted Francesca, she looked backwards. He ran up to her. Let me pay for an hour. I'm not on the clock. Can we figure this out? As they walked onward, a car passing by them honked. Sure, I see you already got lunch. That's fine. Let me take you out. Is there somewhere you would like to stop? Here is fine as they stood underneath an awning that looked like it was about to drop. The drooping canvas that would have let the rain in could have been a metaphor of things to come. He opened the door into a dungeon. She entered first, not really concerned. He followed uncorsed. Outside of the door, someone shouted some obscenities. The mechanism clicked into place as Rey stood standing, anxious. The door closed behind them, silencing any obstructions from the public. He looked around at the walls so far away. What is that framed? And are those chains dangling restraints? I hear a scrape, followed by a bang, and much to my dismay, something like a bag with the consistency of a rag was placed over my face. Yet he could still breathe. Someone is dragging something, then crack went both of my knees. Please, God help me. Mary, Jesus, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I'd scream, but it's getting harder to breathe. Rey must have been hyperventilating from the pain. More hands stand the moron to his unresponsive feet, throw him into a chair and wheel him into the street, where a car screeches to brake. He felt like Johnny Knoxville in Bad Grandpa rolling down that hill uncontrollably, except this wasn't fake. Before Rey could cross the road like the chicken, an automobile couldn't stop and hit him. Create a crepe to eat in the morning. The signs were placed as warnings. The disc jockey spins another song on the radio as the driver makes a wrong turn. Now it's up to her to maneuver the terrain with one foot on the brake. Okay, now give it some gas. He flicks a fag, then complies, then puts in a mint. Face like leather, he crept unseen in the trees around their vehicle. More fuel like diesel, she said to the driver of the neon. Let's get out of here now that we're free of the debris that you didn't see. Another thing impeded their progress. As Rey Tosim, I promise the barricade will keep. A strip was placed in haste as they approached that wasn't anchored at the base, so it would become hard to trace. Out of his options, this one was the most deployable. Never unemployable. This was just much more fun. A cell phone, amplified by speakers, rung loud and clear through its receiver. As the cement blocks that blocked and eventually stopped, the driver of the Dodge Neon got out and hauled off the obstruction he spotted.
Sunday driving, the wife in the passenger. I drive with my mind on nice things like smashing her. Flashing the indicator, instigate the turn to the hidden forest truck an instant later. An instant sway to the left and take the next basic step, fade left and then wait with bated breath. But then we see the dense debris and hence we need to steer the car near a farm, clear a path and then we're free. We enter deep and endless trees surround us, and briefly it seems that endless pieces found us. Until a header shape is clearly formed at some concrete blocks. I'm sure this wasn't here before. No thought to clear the path, then I'm sure I hear a laugh. I ignore it and force the more but fear to pass. Don't wish to scare the wife, but I'm thinking where's the knife, and I need to regain focus like a blinking pair of eyes. But I'm sinking, bear in mind that there's no body for miles. Rey will toss him, yeah, he'll throw bodies in piles, but he won't body a child like the villain George Stark, who's known to roam these parts often killing for dark. I'm willing more cars to make their presence known, but only the cicadas make their pleasant drone. We could take the lesser known southern trail, others fail to make it through the pine trees, might just be another bale. I'm standing by the blocks while I'm planning like like I'm lost as I watch a tossed rock drop landing by my socks. Before I can react, I saw him walk and span the gap with an air of ease so carefully he's stalking and I'm trapped. The wife screams and life seems to move in slow. Then I see a knife cleanly sliced deep into the bone of my arm. Lost my calm, what's my chance of escape? Once he cuts off my arm, toss my ass in the lake. What's a last minute break if I leave the wife behind? I see her frightened eyes, I just need to buy some time. So I plead her like a pilot, gotta take off and take flight. He swings again, which I shake off and fake right. Daylight fades as it ambles onto dark. As I break my days, the wife scrambles from the car. The knife slices easy as the breeze coming through the trees. The last thing I see is Eva running through the trees.
Ray watched from a distance. The wind was calm. From above, leaves fell down on his hood like floating paratroopers. His car was black and would match just about any other vehicle's description in this precinct, save for the identification number. In the passenger rode a duffel big enough to smuggle large amounts of narcotics out of the country. He reached in and produced a set of binoculars, uncovered them, and peered into the distance. A park bench came into focus where a lone couple sat looking happily ever after. Ray was about to change that. From his bag, he grabbed a bat like sluggers. Little and subtle, he took steps to decrease the distance between he and the couple. I should have noticed the construction just west of the playground, but too late. That doesn't really matter now. Ray was closing ground. The baseball bat was round, discolored from tar, Jorge Posadas, and weighed about 2 pounds. He got it from his grandpa. My mom wants to be a grandma. The baseball bat came down. Loud yet without a sound, from behind, Ray pressed the wood around. 2 people slumped over and falling ever so more down. Fuck it, the time is now. Dragged them to the car. The trunk was large and spacious enough for 2 bodies. Didn't want to get the back seats bloodied. Inserted the key into the ignition like R. Kelly. It started with a thunderous roar, like the muffler or exhaust system needed maintenance. No one noticed, and he rode off into the sunset while the leaves collect. Billy the kid was ambushed and shot dead. What a way to live. I drive until I find something suitable enough for 2 people taken too soon. He just has to. And a row of junipers come into view off the side of the road. If I had to say, a little overgrown, and he's about to fertilize them more to grow. His door opened slowly behind a curtain of evergreen scenery as the sun set ever so gently. Buried in a makeshift grave, Ray had to make haste. He looked up and saw another place where children may play. So 2 guys walk into a bar. Just kidding, far from it. Two guys are walking in the darkness, illuminated only by the street lamps which flashed irregularly like a murmured heartbeat, or at intervals similar to commercial breaks, give or take. Ray holds his own light whose rays are much more constant, like that of children in an orphanage. As his source shines bright still, he begins to elaborate their purpose. A hill comes into focus, rising high above the trees. What stands before us is not a forest, but rather a densely wooded area in what is normally a suburban landscape populated by 3,000 or 4,000. Rough estimate. We've always taken the path less traveled, but this time we followed it. We didn't talk much. I might have grunted on our way to the top once or twice, but Jay stayed silent. Strong as an ox, I would say, his strength preceded me. I couldn't take him. Happy to have him as a partner. But still we moved methodically over the bushes, falling down trees and stumps that should have been grinded. I thought they were supposed to fill this land with a supermarket. I'm glad they haven't. Even though it hasn't happened yet, I prospect. This town would be ruined. I stayed moving and said, "Are you okay?" In the lead-like cheer, he followed at a safe distance, safe enough to see my missteps and learn from them. We were quickly at the top. What we were chasing might have been for naught, but the evidence led us here. We needed to coincide it. As ragtag private investigators, we had to see it through. The ground disturbed was enough showing for us to be on our way, but Jay took a rock through it, and once it went suspended, we couldn't walk away.
Top of the hill, drop the pill, masculine, excavating holes in the top of the ground near the park. Dead in the dark shadows, me and Red, keeping the blasted light, no pay on mine. Trotting down the road, smoking the bogey, hitting up the nearest brunch shop. I'm ready to get my whiskey. Shippy miss me, watch ping pong at my dome piece. Niggas forget I was a pitcher in Italy, introducing my heat rock towards nothing in the wind. Ray Johnson in his notepad, like a chipper and glad bag. I take my ectoplasm detector out, finding shit so fast. We 20 minutes of fretting stairs, walk into a bar, holding my gap poster. Bounce of frisbee, I showed them the badge and happy shit. Killing out the grin grip G, chatted up honey bunny, doing my Sergeant J Magnum. How you doing? Don't you got a clue? I'm Sergeant J Magnum. How you doing? Don't you got a clue? In the bartender from Mimosa, scoop the place, looking out for clues. Upon the Rey Tosim, passing around while I'm in the back, finger banging the bartender. Hit with big chicks and slender, think from G at a triple D bro on hearing. We noises when she poises for more. We hear the roar. I pulled out as she coming gunning. Draw my pistol thinking it's a shootout. It's a block of whistle. Seaweed slime mixing. Seaweed slime mixing with green lights. Horror noises and eyes popping. Dead bodies dropping. Weird gas releasing. We divided and eating dead pieces. Look at the dead reeds. I'm here from the lobby. Sucker with a chainsaw. Lies in hell bright. Seeing piffy scenes with the chain. Grabs right by throat. Smoking more dope. Saw coons ropes. I blocked off spitting their wigs. I got 3 in the chamber. 1 in the clip. Shit about to get thick. Saw the sky darkening, the moon rising. Red zombies and group begin to feed. Hearing noises down the road. Run back to the whip. Shit won't start. Grab my spare gat. Pop the trunk. Had the shot. Dropping zombies left and right. Heard the voices. This is Halloween tonight.
Left wide open as they were unloading their groceries. A quiet family of 3 in a neighborhood that didn't garner much attention from the police. Because it was deemed safe, the gate stayed locked at the entrance, only accessible by key code or password, and watched over by a man or girl in a booth. But with the rise of technology, you could now get through with a sensor on your car's windshield. Everybody felt there. Days go by undisturbed, even start to blend into a blur. Ray chose the houses methodically. A lot of information went into the lofts he would stay. Always got away, almost left a semen stain, so he somehow Rey Tosim never got those charges placed upon him. He's been doing this since grade school, and it started with his own neighbors, comfortable in the room above the second floor where he could hear all their troubles. No, honey, daddy's not coming home for supper. Don't know why he wanted to, but needed. Knew where everyone slept from the ceiling. Would drop down on occasion to survey the layout. Usually when everyone was out, in this particular house was no different. When she would take the children to kindergarten and be gone some 9 or so hours, Rey would hop down and take a shower. Take what little he could without notice and return to the attic. Not one bit problematic when it came to sharing someone else's residence. Considerate enough in the aspect that he would wash his own dishes, even run the vacuum cleaner if needed to reduce his own dander. The plans were to ransack random homes. Rey would do it alone. Irresistible charm. Usually no guns involved. The moving truck arrived on schedule at the bewitching hour of the devil. Rey gathered together like herding cattle, the 2 kindergartners at peace beneath the covers, snuggling their stuffed animals against the pillows. He felt like Noah, and chloroform isn't expensive when you manufacture it. The kids had their own little special retreat in the extended cab of the trailer. Their mother lays lethargic in her master's suite like she was just stricken with typhoid fever. Rey whispers, "I'll come back for you later," and begins to carry out furniture like a professional mover. The silverware and china were tucked aside weeks prior, walked out the display vanity case like two-step dancing with a child. Up next was the recliner, love seat, washer, and dryer. Rey was no amateur, kept the dolly and straps in the back of the trailer. The entertainment stand was a burden, but it had to go also. TV too. Understand, kid, he could always come back for seconds, thirds even, especially taken into consideration how today was the first day of the weekend. No one would notice their absence. He pulled out the chains and cable to hook up the Honda CR-V SUV to the receiver hitch. No steering required. Definitely no driver. The sun started to peak above the clouds like playing that whack-a-mole game with a rubber mallet at the arcade. Had to do one more thing. Mom was still sleeping dreamlessly. He could have taken the easy route out, but no way. He said, "You're gonna ride with me." The wine she drank last night was expertly laced. She, happy as a bee when it pollinates, had no complaints. They backed out and then slowly drove away. Rey took him to the warehouse, which was right up the block, in a place where various staff attendants would process what he brought to them for compensation. The demand for infants was at an all-time low, but yo, check it, the price was nice for kids ages 6 to 10. I might have hit the jackpot with just them. Someone's ex-wife's life lacked excitement because once the effects of the sedatives faded, she made no attempts at resistance. One of the many ways Rey likes them. He thought she'd make an exceptional addition to the club in the basement. Club Cannabis, where every Thursday night is open mic. Chicks be crawling on the floor like cockroaches and chilling on couches like cushions. Some would even be swinging from the ceiling like Spider-Man in cages, except naked. I come bearing gifts, an armful of breads clasped to her chest like a second set of breasts. Oh yeah? Well, when I come, you'll be bearing children. She smiled, uneasy, then laughed. His quick wit was unmatched, and she was beginning to feel more attracted to him by the minute. She's only made his acquaintance once or twice before, made possible through relatives. His demeanor was thoughtful, and he was the first to unburden her load. She smiled again as he closed the door behind them. Wine filled the glasses and caramelized onions stick in the air with their aroma. On the stove boiled a lobster. Its pleas for colder water could not be heard any longer. Even though she loved the feel of his touch, she still flinched every time she felt it. Ray took her offerings to the kitchen, then came back to help off her jacket. Bashful after his hand slid past her tits, Rachel finally stammered a sentence. To him. The warm air from his breath still lingered on her neck. In between gasps, what she had to say held no relevance to what she actually meant. His fingers ran through her hair from behind and softly graced the tip of her ear before hanging her coat on the rack in front of the stairs. On the bottom step rested a cat whose eyes were closed just like hers. She wanted to moan, but figured it'd be inappropriate. Oh well. Ray was chilled to his bones, took the hint, and grabbed Rachel's ass real hard. The next sound was even louder. Now out wanders niece Alice to greet her Aunt Rachel. We kinda took that as our cue. The lights were dim in the dining room. She looked over toward him for any sort of confirmation regarding the seating arrangements, but he was so full of grace that she forgot what she was thinking. A marble statue chiseled from the Renaissance is what she remembered when he stood momentary. Ray handled the glass by its stem and made sure on the transfer to trace the skin that covered the delicate bones of her wrist. The fragility of the feminine form was something he always marveled. She leaned into him, feigning like she was falling. It was her sister who made the first comment. They sat down next to each other regardless. You'd have thought this was a high school desk with what was happening underneath it. The oven started beeping. Something had to be finished, and Ray couldn't have agreed more. An audible splat hit the floor. Now it seemed to be his turn to moan. 1-800 Ray Rips.
Get your clothes on. You're getting out of here.
Are we, Johnny? Are we?
Not we. You.
You do hate me, don't you, Johnny?
I don't think you have any idea how much.
Hate is a very exciting emotion. Haven't you noticed? Very exciting. I hate you too, Johnny. I hate you so much that I think I'm going to die from it.